I'm back. I'm going to start making some videos again. We're going to get into some neuroscience and stuff. It's very fascinating. Today, we're going to focus on heat pits of vipers and boas and pythons, which is really a fascinating thing. And you can find the basic information, so you know I have to add some neuroscience into this stuff if you know this channel. So we're going to work on that. But before I do it, there's a lot of animals, and I don't have any snakes, so I might as well show you guys something interesting, something you'll never see in your whole life. It's not something you'll have at zoos, because they bury themselves too much. Very unique animal. I've only met like 2 or 3 people that have actually owned one or knew about them. Woo! He is feisty. Woo! Yeah. This is a Madagascar ornate plated lizard. He's adorable, right? Look at him. He's so pretty. Madagascar ornate plated lizard. You can see he's got that blue tongue. That's why you don't let kids pet him like that. Boop. I don't know if I want to snoot him, but he's got this line right here, like legless lizards will. He's kind of flighty, but we just have to let him calm down. Let him get to see some, like, skinks. So you grab him from the sides, not the top. Grab him from the sides. It usually calms him down more, doesn't it, buddy? Yeah, we won't keep him out because that doesn't quite fit in. He doesn't really have the third eye or any of the heat pits or anything. It's very fascinating, but you could rub his back. You could, as long as you grab him from the sides. This is things that we will eventually get into as well. The handling, how handleable are my animals, things like that. The changes that I've seen. Yeah. So I'm in a new room. This is a new animal. It's not a skink, but yet it has a skink brain. He's very cute, aren't you, bud? Yes, he is. We're going to go give him a worm and put him back. Oh, jeez. He snapped that one. That's how fast. That's how sharp their beaks are comparatively. Let him eat that. So they need good humidity and good temperatures being from Madagascar. All right. We're going to just let him kind of have his little, can't really see him over there, and the light right there. So I brought out Calm Fancy, my beardy. How I got the ornate plated lizard to be friendly for a little bit is I took out one of my zebra skinks that is friendly, and I showed it to him. Very nice. Very pleasant. All right. So we're going to keep Fancy here. He was trying to go to sleep. So this is a really good picture of the differences here. So the black arrow is the nostril, and the red arrows are the actual heat pits. So the heat pit on a viper is in the bottom. So they have 2 notches right there below their nostrils, between their nostrils and eyes, that are actually heat pits. And they are a different heat pit than the actual pythons have. Now, Snake Discovery and All Canadian Reptile Girl has done a great job with these. So this is actually the top. You can see the different spots that are actually heat pits across the upper face and the jaw, even the lower jaw of the python or boa. And the two differences are on the viper, it's a labial pit, while on the pythons, it's a loreal pit. I know I might have butchered that. Now, the studies show that the python has a lower percentile of its usage than a viper does, even though they have two dots here, and the pythons have the full mustache and beard, side beards of heat pits on their faces. That it's really fascinating that the vipers are even more, because the loreal is this. So it's actually the cavities have an actual membrane that is not attached. So as this membrane vibrates according to its temperatures, it cools down through the actual bloodstream behind it. So this is really cool. Like, it actually vibrates to the temperature. So that membrane does not attach behind or in front to anything. So it's actually very loose and but I do not believe this is the only reason why these guys, because it's two dots, where the other ones have a full face. You would think the full face would be more effective, but this is actually more effective. And we'll get into that here in a minute. When we talk about pythons, we talk about the scales here and how the scales and the infrared comes through and detaches. Like, it actually collects right there underneath. Very sensitive membranes inside the actual scale patterns. So, which is actually kind of similar to a bearded dragon third eye. So this third eye right here on top of a bearded dragon's head is very fascinating. And it actually matters here, because what happens is this third eye, I know, Fancy, I know you're a good boy, but this third eye right here actually travels down above the forebrain. Their decision-making, imagination, so on. Yeah, he's like, I want to get away so I can go like sleepy. See, everybody thinks that right there, that head bob, means thank you sometimes. That head bob never means thank you. That head bobs mean I want something. He's telling me he wants down. He wants me to let him down. That's all that means. So when they eat something and they head bob you, it means give me more of this. I want more. It does not mean I'm satisfied. Thank you. They don't think in thank yous. I'm trying not to be a dick. I'm trying not to. It's like an autistic person or a woman. They don't think in thank yous. Or a narcissist. Yeah, just a narcissist in general. I don't. We don't need a thank you. We don't need a thank you for the bare minimum. But he's my good boy. Calm Fancy here's my good boy. So this goes down into his brain, but it actually goes down over the forebrain. Decision-making, imagination, and memory is stored. But it doesn't drop off there. It actually is a nerve ending that comes back further, like where this is your forebrain, right there where the eyes are, right behind them, to a little further back to the optic tantrum. What's important about this is this scale is very similar to this. I know you want down. Oh, you can see the skink. You can see the guy back here. I don't know if you guys can. Fancy can. You can barely see him. He's a good boy. He's not a great boy, but he's fun. No point, but Fancy's my boy. Yes, I know Fancy, you want now. My Cuban Nightingale baby's gotta be loving this. This has got to be very interesting for them. So, because they're right here. I've got a bigger one in the back with a bigger tank, with a screen tank, and eventually these guys are going that, but that's not here but there. But so the third eye doesn't just automatically land in there. It actually travels back to the optic tantrum. That's what the pit, not the pit vipers. That is what the boas and the actual pythons, that's what happens to them. That information from the mustache heat pits goes back to the optic tantrum behind their forebrains. So it doesn't automatically go there. It just kind of jumps back. And so it's dissected just like anything else, just like theirs is dissected. Vipers are different. It actually goes back to the medulla and comes forward into the optic tantrum. Because as sight goes in, it goes to the optic nerve, which sits underneath a reptile's brain, and then goes to the optic tantrum, dissected, and it either makes a move right away by sending it to the medulla, or it gets kicked out into the forebrain where they will make decisions about it and use it to make information and store into their memory. And then it'll kick back to the optic tantrum and kick down their medulla and out to make them move. So when we're talking about vipers still, it actually goes back to the medulla, back to the forebrain, or back to the optic tantrum, instead of vice versa, which is actually part of something I'm going to make a huge video on, about the different parts of the brain and how connection, it's 100% connection theory. So very much like autistic people, it's very interesting. If you haven't studied empathy and autism, it's probably pretty new to you, kind of things like this. But when you take the whole brain and you actually cut it up into pieces, the percentile of those pieces is one of the most important things to their behavior. It's one of the most important things to understanding their behavior. 2 is the actual connections. That's super important. The connections. The faster the connections, the faster the information travels, but the more connections, the better that connection can get. Then it's density, which affects connections, because the crow has a massive, and then it's size. Size is not actually the number one determination of intelligence. Come on, Fancy, what are you doing, buddy? What's my boy doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? You weirdo. You're such a good boy. This isn't normal for him. See, they're very independent, my beardies, but that's not the point. So as we go down here, so this is the bearded dragon brain that we were talking about. We can see that third eye up here, right here. And that third eye pumps down. See, that third eye was sitting right here over the OL stalk / forebrain. So as we can see, that forebrain comes, that third eye comes down right over the forebrain, but it doesn't go to the forebrain. It goes to the optic tantrum right here. Right above those 2 marshmallow-looking things behind that red plate, which is your cerebellum. These optic tantrum right here. The bottom 2 marshmallows that sit behind it. That's where that's dissected at, along with its sight. And then the medulla is this string that comes out, this tubing. And so we can see that it would automatically go straight to that tubing. So if a shadow pops up overhead, it'll go straight to that optic tantrum, kick out the medulla, and they start running. Just a natural defense. It's very fascinating. But we know beardies aren't the smartest. So let's look at a ball python brain. So this ball python, we can see the forebrain, these heat pits right here, these where its teeth are, there's some heat pits. And these heat pits have to come back along the jaw and come up with the two little marshmallows behind or in front of the cerebellum, the red piece. So they actually get dissected right there, much like the rainbow boa. The rainbow boa also has the jaw structure coming back. It actually comes up and goes to the optic tantrum automatically. Gets dissected, much like the bearded dragon third eye. Very sensitive. There's so many more of them because they need so many more of it. Very, very sensitive. But as we look at the viper, Oh, I know what he's doing too now. He's showing dominance. He is showing dominance. He is showing dominance to my my guy here. Are you showing dominance? You got dominance on the brain, buddy? Because you are dominant. I know you are. You're like, I said, big wizard. Because he is. He might be showing dominance to that lizard. That's one thing that he's doing, isn't it, buddy? Trying to get down so you can show dominance. You a wizard. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, because that's where his focus is at. His focus is on a lizard that he's never seen. And that's probably good for him, too. It's mental stimuli, so it's good. So, as we can see on... So this is a desert horn viper. The head structure, quite a big difference. And here's how the brain sits in there. It's very interesting. See, I think this is fascinating to me. Because these two heat pits sit right here. You can see the little openings right there that look like little eyes type things right here. And then that doesn't automatically go back to your optic tantrum right here. These two little underneath the wing looking stuff, right above this little red spot, these two keg looking things, those are your optic tantrums. It doesn't go straight to that. It goes to this medulla and up into there. And so we could see that the connections in this brain are probably faster in that area. So it actually feels the heat before it sees it. So it feels it, sees it, and then it also tastes it, tastes what it's seen. Snake Discovery said something very interesting when it came to the heat pits, that they need their sight, the heat pits, and the smell. And when you have all three of those come together, they can understand what they're seeing. I repeatedly say this. There's a reason for the quick tongue flick on actual snakes. It's a reinforcement of what they see. Because those things are all connected. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So to them, this thing doesn't really exist properly until all these things are fulfilled. And so now you add feeling, but the medulla and the optic tantrum are just simultaneous. It's what you would call instinct or modeling or whatnot. That's what moves their bodies without them actually making the decision to move. That's what that does. And so when you're, thinking about that, always think about it. The quicker the response, the actual different parts of it, the percentile of it, because we know that skinks and monitors are actually some of the smartest reptiles because they have faster connections, the way their brains are connected. So we can actually look at this fire skink. This is a very interesting brain. We have your OL stalk that comes back to the forebrain that has been stretched because of the massive OL stalk here in front between the eyes that lean forward. And then we have this forebrain, their decision making. And then we have the optic tantrums right behind it. That's all in line right there. So these are like jelly beans that have an attachment to the optic tantrum that goes to the medulla. Now, this may seem like, why are we comparing skinks when we're talking about this? Because we know how smart these are. So when we look at the ball python, we can see that the forebrain, the optic or the OL stalk is not as long, but yet it's still pretty massive. Like they're actually a bigger percentile than the skink brain by about 5%. And so it takes away from the forebrain. But that forebrain is actually shaped like lungs. So this back end, this spots, whatever's back here is going to take longer for it to move into the rest of the forebrain and out to connect to everything. It's going to take longer than it would a skink or a monitor for that matter. And that's why. And so that information coming from the optic tantrum may take a little longer than it would from a skink. Well, we have the same thing with the rainbow boa. It's that lung shape. It's a separation. Instead of having the forebrain, their decision making and imagination being right there. I know you want to dominate him, okay? I get it, buddy. I get it. I get you. You're my boy, but no. Calm down. So it just means that it takes longer. It doesn't mean they can't build those connections. It just takes longer for them to do it than a skink would. It's why skinks are so imaginative and monitors are so imaginative. They're so creative in the way they behave. They're so curious. Snakes have more curiosity than when we look at the bearded dragon. Its forebrain is quite a bit smaller than both of those because it hasn't been stretched out due to a larger OL stalk. The OL stalks in front are like kind of like a flower that hasn't bloomed yet. There's a very small stem leading to a bulb. And so you're talking like 10 to 15% of their brain power is OL stalk, whereas a skink is like 20 to 25%, whereas a snake is over 30. So that's where you're seeing this. So he probably makes bigger decisions faster, and he has more access to the stuff that he has. But since it hasn't been stretched, it's not a bigger percentile as you would see. Like the connections aren't as dramatically lost as like a snake would have, but yet it's not stretched. So his forebrain isn't as big as a skink or something, why he's not as exploratory as a skink might be. Whereas a snake, you would go, no, they should be as exploratory. Maybe. But yet then they don't have as full of exploratory nature as a skink might because of that forebrain. Now when we look at the viper, this is fascinating when you look at that forebrain. It's like wings hanging out instead of a jelly bean going back. Meaning that the separation between there's imagination and memory. So defining creativity is using more brain power, using both sides of that forebrain. using your memory and your imagination at the same time creates more creativity. So when a monitor or a tagu does this as it walks, so as it does this as it walks, that's creativity. That is absolutely creativity going through it. The faster the tongue flicks on the snake, that's creativity being done. That's a sign of it. It's a sign that they're using both their brain power. It doesn't mean that they're going to be creative like a human. They're not going to paint you the freaking Mona Lisa. But it's still creativity, it still counts. And that's very fascinating. So, when we look at this pit viper, well, this would explain why it's an ambush predator. Because its creativity is limited on what it thinks it can do. So it's not out here going, okay, what do I have to do to get a prey item? Can I get up in the tree? Can I get to the floor? Can I do it? It's like, okay, so now I have to sit here and wait. So I have to imagine something coming along. Not, I have to imagine what I need to do as well as something coming along. So this is probably the reason why they are not as creative and as outgoing as a skink would be. Or a monitor. But yet, it also explains why they're ambush predators. And their medulla may be kinked because they are like the rainbow boa or the ball python has the bigger kink in the medulla than a rainbow boa does, because the ball python buries itself. Well, so does the sand viper. The desert horn viper will bury itself. So this kink may come from that, but it also may come from the information from the actual pits. Can you see how this actually explains more of their behavior than just, oh, well, it sees this better? No, the information is dissected faster and used in multiple ways faster. But yet, since it's limited on its imagination more than a regular snake would be, it's not thinking, "I'm gonna head Bobby again. I'm gonna head Bobby again. You're gonna head Bobby McGee today. You're gonna be the head Bobby McGee. You're gonna be a. Does you want to eat him? Want you? Want you?" I was like, no, they don't want to get eaten. All right. So I hope this is helpful in understanding their brain power, but it's fascinating. Which came first? Okay, head Bobby McGee, come on. All right, buddy. So which came first? The actual forebrain separating like wings, or the actual heat pits and the ambush prey comes first, to where they just sit there and wait. So they put all their imagination into that instead of actually outdoing things and exploring and trying to understand things like a python or a boa would, or a skink, or the bearded dragons isn't. What comes first? I don't know. It's very fascinating. And then on top of that, does the heat pits create so much energy, so much sensitivity that it would actually increase the size of their medulla? It probably wouldn't be that much if it did. So it's very fascinating. I don't know. These are questions that we still have. There's always going to be questions. This is never going to be perfect. There's always going to be some key that we're missing. There's no such thing as like that. What came first? I don't know. But we can actually see from brain scans how these things behave. And the ball python and the rainbow boa behave differently than a viper does by quite a bit. and we can see it in the brain. It's really cool to me. I don't know about you guys. I think that's awesome. So, hey guys, like, subscribe, and share. Really share, because I'm going to start doing this. The next episode should be 100% brain theory, where I explain that and I go over every little piece and how we see the differences and then how that affects the next one and the percentiles and stuff that it goes down, because it really shows differences even in skink species and, dragon species and other species, how it really shows up differently here. And we can see this in the snake species. They have a sea snake brain. We're going to look at that. All right, guys, so stay with me. And then maybe later we'll go over like handle abilities and actually go over things. He's fascinating. We got to get him some lumps, okay? You guys have a good day.